Ferrari arrives in Las Vegas with a clear mission: defend the second place in the Constructors Championship and try to end the season on a high note. Only 3 races remain, and the first real opportunity to demonstrate a reaction from Maranello is Las Vegas, in the strangest and most complicated weekend of the year. In today's video, we'll look at what the expectations are for Las Vegas, what statements Vasseur has made, and we'll also hear from Verstappen and Andrea Stella. We'll also look at the issue of graining, which will be crucial for this Grand Prix, and be aware that it might also rain in Las Vegas. Indeed, this year is expected to have very strange weather. Before we begin, please leave a supportive like, and now let's see everything in detail. The SF25 has stopped evolving for a while now. 0 updates and 0 new developments. Everything hinges on the ability to read the weekend and execution. And this is where Las Vegas becomes a nightmare for many teams. Very cold temperatures, high risk of graining, and an asphalt that punishes you if you slightly miss the tire window. The track has long straights, few fast corners, lots of tire cooling, and a smooth but bumpy asphalt. Basically, the perfect mix to challenge a car sensitive to ground clearance, like Ferrari. Mechanical grip never comes easily. If the tires don't reach temperature, you lose time in every slow corner. So what will be the real problem in Las Vegas? Heating the tires. In fact, with super low drag setups, basically like Monza, but without the high-speed corners that highlighted the floor's limitations compared to Red Bull and McLaren, the SF25 will struggle, especially in qualifying. We saw it last year too. Here you can also play between 1 and 2 preparation laps because the tire doesn't reach temperature on the first attempt. Yet Vasseur remains convinced. In the last races, Ferrari has made progress, not thanks to updates, but thanks to the method. Less improvisation, more data analysis, and more ability to interpret behaviors and degradation. They're no longer working in a vacuum, as he says, and this is what really makes the difference at Ferrari today. And so, Vasseur said, Las Vegas is unique. The atmosphere, the format with the race on Saturday, the track. In the last races, we've been solid, we've fought at the front, and we want to do it here too. In other words, Ferrari believes they have enough performance to be among the top, but everything depends on understanding how to make the tires work. In short, it's a bit of the leitmotif of this season. Because the truth is simple. In race pace, Ferrari is there, but on a single lap, it's much more difficult. And in Las Vegas, qualifying is worth half the race. Because if you don't start at the front, with all the tire cooling phases and variable strategies, climbing back up becomes an agony. In slow corners, the issue is even more delicate. If the compound doesn't enter the right window, you lose more time than necessary. Not because of the car, but because the tire doesn't give you mechanical grip. And that's where the weekend will be decided. Vasseur has made it clear. Managing the tires with very low temperatures will be crucial, as well as interpreting the race well and seizing strategic opportunities. We need to focus on ourselves and make sure we leave nothing behind. In short, Ferrari knows very well that here, the best car doesn't win, but the team that finds the tire window more quickly and maintains it longer. Las Vegas is unforgiving. And this time for Ferrari, it's a mental test before a technical one. And watch out for Mercedes in Las Vegas. In past years, they have always proven to be strong on this track. And even this year, they could make the difference because we know that at low temperatures, Mercedes comes alive. In the last race in Brazil, everyone underestimated them a bit. But in the end, we found them up front fighting with McLaren. And since McLaren will be a bit more in difficulty this weekend, given the track layout that should disadvantage the Woking team, even though Andrea Stella himself, as we'll hear later, said that this year they should suffer less compared to previous years. Despite this, watch out for Mercedes. And of course, we should never underestimate Verstappen. These will be Ferrari's rivals. Whoever manages to best interpret the Las Vegas layout, with many bumps, long straights, and slow corners, will have the upper hand. But let's see what the atmosphere is like in Maranello as the team is traveling to Las Vegas. Who was John Elkann's attack really aimed at? To understand it, we need to hear the words of Riccardo Ceccarelli, someone who has been closely observing drivers for years, studying them, mentally preparing them, and understanding before others when something breaks within a team. Ceccarelli doesn't beat around the bush. Elkann's words were a shock and for many, completely inappropriate. According to him, those statements sounded more like a fan's outburst at a bar than an intervention from the president of Ferrari. The problem isn't the criticism itself. Drivers are employees of the company, and if they don't perform, it's normal for the company to ask for explanations. The problem is how you do it. Complaining about your drivers in front of the whole world means delegitimizing Hamilton and Leclerc publicly. And this, Ceccarelli says, is a huge mistake. But then why did Elkann choose to do it in front of the media? Ceccarelli hypothesizes 2 paths. Either it was a glaring naivety, which is unlikely, or there's something we don't know yet. An internal message, a warning, a psychological push, or a shift in balances, something we will discover later. Because it must be remembered, Ferrari has been working for years to avoid this type of friction. Inside Maranello, a lot has been invested in the well-being of drivers, technicians, and mechanics. They have always tried to protect the environment to allow everyone to perform at their best. And precisely for this reason, Elkan's public outburst seemed completely illogical. Then there's another story that erupted in the same days. Perez's appearance at the Cadillac tests in Imola, supported by Ferrari. And here we understand how often we judge drivers without having all the data. Perez had been labeled as finished, destroyed by Verstappen, yet another washed-up driver sacrificed on the grave of Max's teammates. Instead, as soon as he got back into a single-seater, he returned to being competitive with strong times and solid pace, as if he had never stopped. Ceccarelli states it clearly. Perez wasn't lacking. He was just crushed by an absolute phenomenon and a car tailored for Verstappen, just like what happened to Ricciardo, Sainz, and all the others. Max is a destroyer of teammates, that's a fact. From here comes the challenge of the new Cadillac project. Perez versus Bottas. Two veterans, two requalifiers, but with a career that, just like in all sports, today can last much longer thanks to modern physical and mental preparation. Ceccarelli is clear. Don't be surprised if new teams focus on experience. You need someone who can understand the car, develop a plan, and give direction. And it's no coincidence that Cadillac has brought together two drivers who know the dynamics of top teams very well. Ferrari arrives in Las Vegas with all this noise surrounding them. An internal controversy, a president who wanted to send a public signal, a team that will have to prove whether those balances are still solid, or if something at Maranello has truly cracked. And Ceccarelli is convinced that the answer will come on the track. If Elkan spoke like this, it's because there's something we'll only know in Las Vegas or later. But let's talk about technical data. Where can Ferrari perform better compared to other teams? Let's take a look together at some characteristics of the track. Let's start with the numbers. In 2024, Ferrari worked well here. Sainz on the podium, Leclerc fourth, the SF25 is no longer the SF24, but something of that DNA remains exactly what's needed in Las Vegas. The track is a fast street circuit, few challenging corners, long straights, medium-low downforce. It's a context in which this year's Ferrari has never been destroyed by opponents. Not dominant, but always there. And above all, there's the issue that can change everything. The top speed. The SF25 has often had it in hand at this point, and the team has used it multiple times as a setup base. In 2024, Ferrari built the lap almost entirely on the exit, on handling the tires well, traction, rear management. The problem? The insertion phases were an Achilles heel, too evident. Here Mercedes gained entire meters, and indeed when you entered the corner, there was a lack of stability, an insufficiently solid front, an ineffective underbody in certain conditions, and the car became nervous precisely when precision was needed. In 2025, this limitation became one of the most important focuses. The suspension modification introduced mid-year reduced that unstable behavior. It hasn't solved everything, but it helped. In Las Vegas, the idea is clear. Focus on a different approach to building the lap, favoring the entry phases. In Mexico, this philosophy worked very well, and the team wants to replicate it. But be careful. The slide understeer, usually seen as a flaw, can be an ally here, because it helps generate surface temperature on the front tire. And here, with 5 degrees at night, it's gold. The desert, the night, the low temperature, and the asphalt, this track doesn't provide heat to the tires. Ferrari knows this and must activate the front as an absolute priority, as happens in Baku, long straights, tires cooling down, and the need to bring them into the right window before the next corner. Here comes the comparison with the SF24. The SF25 handles the compounds completely differently. The team is increasingly focusing on Saturday, improving the single lap, finding the limit in the only really good attempt, and presenting themselves in the race with a less extreme but stable car. The work on qualifying in recent weekends has improved thanks to two fundamental aspects. The warm-up strategy, in fact, you can no longer do a generic outlap. You need to know exactly how much to push, where to put energy on the front, how much to protect the rear to avoid thermal imbalances. Last year, Ferrari studied this work well, and in 2025, they've refined it. And the second point, the reaction to the evolution of the track. In Las Vegas, the grip changes in the blink of an eye. You go from zero grip to a decent level within the span of a session. Be aware that it might rain, and this could change the grip on the track. And here comes into play the famous execution that Vasseur talks about. You don't just need to have the right car. You need to react better than others to change. That's why Ferrari has made a huge leap on the operational side in recent races. The car hasn't become faster, but the team has become more precise. If the SF25 manages to heat the front and maintain stability on entry, not destroy the thermal balance, exploit the top speed, and react to the evolution of the asphalt, then yes, Ferrari can indeed be competitive in Las Vegas, as Vasseur also says. Not by miracle, but because the technical context aligns with the strengths emerging in recent races. The weekend will all come down to managing the single lap and the ability to have confidence in the first 200 meters of each corner. If they can fix that, the red team can surprise here. But be careful, this year's tire choice could be a huge assist to McLaren. Let's see why. In 2024, the asphalt never exceeded 20 degrees, and the air was even colder. With temperatures this low, the rubber doesn't warm up, doesn't grip, and doesn't stabilize. And graining is triggered. The surface tears. It gets damaged and the performance disappears. The problem manifests especially in the early stages of the run, when the tire should gradually increase in temperature. If you stress it too much before it's in the right window, you're screwed. And the Las Vegas track makes everything worse. There were long straights, few corners, smooth asphalt, and low downforce setups. The result is that managing the tire becomes an exact science, and those who make mistakes pay the price. Pirelli chose the C3, C4, and C5 tires, like in 2024. They also considered the C6, but it would have been too fragile in these temperatures. But the real difference is something else, that the 2025 tires have much higher mechanical resistance. So even though they are the same tires as last year, this tire carcass is more resistant, and it's an upgrade that this year surprised Pirelli itself. Even on circuits where graining is almost guaranteed, no disasters have been seen. The reason is twofold. The carcass is more robust, and the teams are more prepared in managing after 4 years of this technical cycle. Graining doesn't disappear, it will still be there, but it shouldn't be as intrusive as in 2024. And why is this an assist for McLaren? Last year's McLaren suffered a lot when the front didn't generate enough temperature. Every time they entered graining, they had total collapses. Think about Australia, Monza, Las Vegas. And in 2024, this problem had amplified for two reasons. Touching the front wing meant sacrificing efficiency, and the compromises to protect the front made the rest of the setup worse. And the MCL39, this year's car, has improved on these aspects. But some scenarios remain dangerous. Tracks with long straights, cold air, and very short corners. China as an example. Despite the progress, McLaren didn't have a huge margin, even if it was the beginning of the season. However, Pirelli's improvement helps McLaren. In fact, moving the sessions up a few hours helps more. The risk of graining is reduced compared to 2024, but the context remains unfavorable to McLaren's philosophy, because it is a track with a lot of speed, little natural grip, and a front that has to try to get up to temperature. And Andrea Stella himself confirmed it, saying, "Last year Las Vegas was a nightmare. But this year graining is much less present, so we might see a completely different Las Vegas. For Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, there will be no problems in the car configuration for the upcoming races. We just have to make the most of the car as we did in Mexico, although Andrea Stella added that lately they haven't succeeded, even though Lando Norris won the last race in Brazil. On paper, McLaren has to try to lose as few points as possible compared to Max Verstappen, but Andrea Stella's statements seem to lower the expectations for McLaren, which has been strong on almost all tracks this year. It has very few weak points, if you will. And yes, Las Vegas is not a favorable track for them, but in my opinion, they will still do well compared to past years. The ultimate goal for them is to try not to waste points against Red Bull and to compete for the title until the end between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Even though on the other hand, Max Verstappen doesn't give up anything. He wants to put pressure on McLaren, and he said, "We arrive at the last triple, and we will give everything. We have nothing to lose." In Brazil, it was a special race. I didn't think I'd get on the podium, but the team did an incredible job. We never give up. And starting from the pit lane and reaching the podium was a phenomenal race by Max in Brazil. So let's see what awaits us in Las Vegas. I also remember that Max Verstappen has a new engine mounted on his Red Bull, and this will make a difference on the track where there are many straights. And for McLaren, it is crucial to stay out of trouble, avoid accidents, and if it rains, or if the track is slippery, well, they must try to avoid losing too many positions, because otherwise Max gains many points in the championship, and we know how voracious Verstappen is. He always wants more. He wants to try to win every race. So if the last twist has to happen, I expect it to be in Las Vegas more than on other tracks. Also because Qatar and Abu Dhabi are more favorable to McLaren. As for Ferrari, Vasseur is confident. He says Las Vegas is a unique event, but Ferrari aims to do well on this track. It is a favorable track. We've seen it in past years as well. Leclerc has always been strong here in Las Vegas, so he could do well this year too. Hamilton. Even though he's been strong in Mercedes in past years here in Las Vegas, it's a track he likes and he could do well. Certainly Mercedes, which has now stretched ahead in the Constructors' standings, is Ferrari's main opponent. We'll see how they compete for the second place in the Constructors' Championship. But I want to hear with you Juan Pablo Montoya's words on Aston Martin, because he dropped a bombshell. The 2026 technical revolution is about to shake up Formula 1, and if there's a team that, according to Juan Pablo Montoya, could be the real wild card of the new era, it's Aston Martin. And not by chance, because at Silverstone, there is now Adrian Newey, and when Newey is around, historically, the regulations become something to interpret. Montoya has no doubts, Aston Martin can become world champion within 3 years. The regulations are simple, with 2026 everything reset. Revolutionized aerodynamics, completely different philosophy, engines 50-50 between electric and thermal, and also reduced downforce. It's the perfect opportunity for a genius like Newey, always capable of finding that hidden detail in the regulations that others ignore. The famous loophole, the grey area that makes the difference. And then there's Alonso. For Montoya, the Asturian close to retirement but still hungry, might have the last chance of his career to fight for a title again. And if there is someone capable of building a championship winning car for him, it's Adrian Newey. And if it doesn't happen in 2026, Montoya is convinced it will happen in 2027. Not only that, there is another variable that makes Aston Martin much more dangerous than one might think. The Honda engine. Every time Honda returns seriously to Formula 1, they end up winning. It happened in Senna's days, then with Red Bull, and now the Japanese power unit will be on Aston Martin's. An explosive mix. Newey plus Honda, plus regulatory revolution, and also plus a certain Fernando Alonso. Montoya is not sure that 2026 will already be the breakthrough year, but he sees it that way. If Newey finds a loophole in the regulations, they win everything. And if we look at his career, it's always been like that. With every technical revolution, it's Newey who manages to build the unassailable advantage. That's why Montoya speaks unfiltered. Aston Martin will have a world champion within 3 years. Whether it's Alonso in his last season, another driver at the start of a new cycle, or the beginning of the first true dominant era of Stroll's team. 2026 will answer the most important question. Who will be able to break the dominance of the top teams that have monopolized the championship for 10 years? According to Montoya, there is only one answer. Aston Martin, with Newey as the secret weapon. Let me know your opinion in the comments on all the topics we covered in the video. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos on the channel. That's all from Rasa. See you in the next video.